the light in the background. We're going to start back onto our back, and you're going to stretch by kicking a leg to the ceiling. Shoulders shrug down out of the ears. Pull the belly in, and the lower leg on the floor is long and straight. Now with each exhale, you're trying to force the air out of the lungs and pull the leg into a deeper stretch. Remember, shoulders are down, abs are tight and pulled in. Now keep your pelvis squared off facing the ceiling as you drop the leg out to the side. Pull on the leg a little bit harder if you can to deepen the stretch. And then when you're ready, bring the leg up to the ceiling, cross over the center line, keeping the hip on the floor. And pull that leg towards the opposite shoulder. That lower leg is long and straight. And then bring the leg right back to center. We're going to do the same thing on the other leg. Pulling it in for the stretch. Remember, shoulders are still sliding down out of the ears. Bring chin a little closer to your chest. You're lengthening the back of the neck. Even hollowing out the abdomen. Now drop the leg out to the side. Try to keep your pelvis squared off so your hips stay facing the ceiling so we're not tipping towards that falling leg. Hopefully feel your hips opening up. Keep lengthening that lower leg that's on the floor. And when you're ready, bring the leg up and cross over the center line. Still take the deep breath up high in the rib cage while you're pulling the belly in a little deeper. As you're crossing over that center line, pull the leg in a little deeper. Remember, your shoulders are sliding down out of the ears. And then center the leg. You can go ahead and take your foot off that band or ring. And we're going to lengthen your arms to the ceiling so we can do some ab curls. So this one, your knees are bent, feet are flat on the mat, and feet are about sit bone distance apart. Upper spine curls up, so you look into the belly. If you have that ring or ball in your hands, press into it, and then rest down head and shoulders. You could just do reaching arms parallel with the floor too if you didn't want to hold the prop. Exhale every time you curl up. Inhale when you rest back down. Keep pressing toes to the floor, squeeze the glutes, pull up on the pelvic floor. Longer arms are reaching and resting down. We'll do 2 more. And your last curl up, let's curl up and try to stay curled up. Staying here, keep pressing harder into that ring or ball if you have it, just reaching longer arms. Draw the navel in deeper and take another deep breath up high in the rib cage and then rest back down. So keep your arms reaching straight to the ceiling if you have that ball or ring, but you're gonna rock the pelvis back so you feel the imprint of the spine and we lift to the bridge. So peeling your spine up, lift the hips as high as you can into that bridge, press the toes to the floor and then slowly roll back down. You wanna think about squeezing the glutes and pulling up on the pelvic floor, lifting the hips as high as you can, keep those arms strong and straight, and then rolling right back down. Let's do 1 more, lifting the hips. Hold the hips up high, pull the belly in, take a deep breath, and then slowly roll back down until you rest. Once your hips are down, just drop both knees to one side just for a little spine twist, and then bring the legs to the other side. When we come back to center, we are going to go into the toe taps, and then we'll do the 100. So with that ball or ring between your ankles, start with the legs at tabletop. Your hands are down by your side, but if you need to, find your neutral first, and you can put your hands on your hips if you need help finding that. But while your spine is in neutral, pull the belly in and then start the toe tap. So both legs lower and lift without changing the position of the lumbar spine or the pelvis. So keeping all that stationary, keep pulling the belly in. Feel your abs have to work so much harder as the feet get closer to the floor. Don't let the abdomen lift. Always trying to draw that navel in as deeply as possible. Hopefully your arms are strong and pressing down into the floor. You're squeezing that ring or ball a little tighter. You could just do this with the legs together if you didn't want to squeeze that ball or ring. Try to get the feet real close to the floor and just hold it. So they're not touching the floor, just holding. Pull the belly in deeper. Squeeze that ring or ball a little tighter. And then bring the legs back to tabletop. So here we go into the 100. Curl your upper spine up, look into the belly, reach the arms long, lengthen the legs out to straight, and start pumping the arms. Inhaling for 5 counts. Exhale for 5. Remember, the breath is still up high in the rib cage. You feel the ribs expanding laterally out to left and right. Try to get those legs a little bit lower if you can. And always tell the inner thighs to work a little harder. Squeezing that ball or ring a little tighter. If you don't have any preps, you could just, or props, sorry, if you don't have any props, you could just squeeze the legs together. Inhaling for 5, exhaling for 5. Try to curl up a little bit higher if you can, reaching longer arms. Last 2 10 counts. You're still squeezing the glutes and pulling up on the pelvic floor. This is your last 10. And after you exhale, you're going to hold everything still, curl up higher, and then rest back down. Go ahead and hold that ring or ball between your hands, but you could just do reaching arms if you didn't want to use the props. This time the legs are down onto the floor for roll up. Glue the legs together, your arms are straight, and your head and shoulders come off the floor, come all the way up, and stretch out over the legs. Stack your spine up to straight so you grow tall, and then rolling all the way back down until you rest. Take a deep breath in, exhale, lifting up, stretching out over the legs, stack up to straight, and then rolling back down. You're squeezing that ring as tightly as possible, forcing every ounce of air out of the lungs when you stretch over the legs. Tell the inner thighs to work hard, squeezing the legs together. We'll do one more roll up. This time I want you to get up and stay up. Stretch out over the legs a little further if you can. Then stack up to straight and hold it. With your arms long and straight, we're gonna do our rotation. So you're just sitting tall as you twist, come back to center, twist the other side, and back to center. Always growing taller. Shoulders are shrugging down out of the ears. If you have that ball or ring, squeeze it a little tighter. Do one more twist on each side, trying to rotate a little more. When you're back to center, you're gonna hold it. Now tuck your tailbone, fall back halfway into this reclining position and just hang out here. Really think about scooping your abs up under the ribs. You're gonna do big circles with the arms. Still breathing. Trying to get some range of motion in those shoulders. We're gonna change direction of the circle, going around the opposite. You should still be thinking about those inner thighs, gluing the legs together. Pull the belly in deeper. When your arms get forward out over the legs, hold, and then we're gonna do a really slow roll down to the floor. The slowest roll down you can make. Really tucking the tailbone under too, so you feel that low back touch the floor. Pull the belly in deeper. Low ribs are touching the mat. And then when you're ready, your shoulders and then your head. So get rid of your props. We don't need them for the leg circles. Your hands are down by your side, your arms are long, pressing into the mat, and one leg goes to the ceiling. Remember, the lower leg that stays on the floor can be bent if you need that support to help keep the pelvis level and stable. We're circling that lifted leg. Inhale as you start the circle, exhale as you finish. Still tell the upper back to work hard too, pressing the shoulders down. I like to externally rotate through my shoulders so that your palms face the ceiling. That helps open up across the front of the chest, but that's up to you. When you're ready, you're going to reverse the direction, but do this with flexed feet. So same leg, we just changed the direction. Still keeping your pelvis squared off, facing the ceiling. Roll into the hip. If you ever get that popping in your hip as you're going around with the circle, you could just rotate at the hip joint a little bit to avoid it. You know, some people aren't bothered by it, but some people don't like it. We'll do one more. When you bring the leg to the ceiling, grab on and pull it in for a stretch. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So start with pointed feet. Your arms are long, reaching and pressing downward into the floor, and then start your circle. The longest, straightest legs you can make. But remember, that lower leg could always be bent if you need to keep it bent. Focus on trying not to move your torso. We're only moving through the hip, that circling leg. Think longer legs too, reaching out of the hip joint. The next time you get this leg to the ceiling, we're gonna pause, flex both feet, and go in the opposite direction. Remember, if you ever get that weird popping in your hip, just rotate the leg slightly in the hip joint, and you should avoid it. Pull the belly in deeper. Still lengthening the back of the neck, pressing the shoulders down. We'll do our last circle. When you get that leg to the ceiling, keep it straight and pull it in for the stretch. Now both knees are going to be bent, but your feet are flat on the floor. So we're going to do another set of the bridging. Hands are by your side. You could do palms facing up or down. Either one's fine. But press the toes into the floor, parallel feet. Peel your spine up off the floor so you're in your bridge. Hold the hips up high, pressing the toes into the mat. We're going to do our alternating leg kicks. So one leg goes up, bring it back down, kick the other leg up, and bring it down. Keep alternating the leg kick. Exhaling as you reach that leg to the ceiling. Still squeezing the glutes. Try to lift the hips a little higher. We'll do one more on each side. That lower leg is pressing harder into the mat. When both feet are on the floor, hold for a deep breath, and then slowly roll your spine back down until you rest. So this time we're going to lift into the bridge. Hold the bridge up high, keeping your hips up. Kick one leg up. Keep that leg straight. As you lower it down halfway, kick it back up. Lower and lift. One more. Then rest on the foot. Keep the hips up. Left leg's turn or opposite leg. Just depends on which one you started on. Lowering and lifting, reaching out of the hip joint. You got your last one. Rest the foot to the floor. Take a deep breath and then slowly roll the spine back down until you rest. So go ahead and cross one ankle over the opposite knee and pull it into your chest. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. When you uncross the legs, bring the legs to tabletop. So with the legs at tabletop, we're just going to move the legs in and out. If you need to, pay attention to your pelvis a little bit more. You can put your hands on your hips. But the goal is to keep your pelvis stable and no movement there as the legs go in and out. This is it's basically a prep for double leg stretch where both legs go out and in. When we do the full exercise, your arms also reach back and you come into this little ball. But this is a good prep for it to feel that core staying tight and strong. Then we'll also change up a rotation in the hips. So as the legs go out, you're always squeezing them together and you're trying not to change the position of the low back or your pelvis. Try to angle the legs lower if you can. Draw the navel in deeper. When the legs are bent to tabletop, pause so we can rotate heels together, toes apart, and do the same thing. You lengthen the legs, bring them back in. When those legs lengthen out to straight, it now kind of feels like you're squeezing the back of the thighs together, squeezing the glutes, still pressing the shoulders into the floor. So we're still working that upper back. Long arms are reaching. We're not gripping into the neck, so your shoulders are sliding down. Just do one or two more of these. Pulling the belly in. Last one. When you're back in, you can pause. So give yourself a little breather because we're going to go into the ab series next. So we do all of them in a row. Remember, you could always keep your head and shoulders down. You don't have to curl up and take breaks so if you need it. But when you're ready, legs are at tabletop. Curl up, look into the belly, hug one leg into your chest, the other leg stretches away, and then you switch. Good. Every time that leg lengthens outward to straight, think forcing there out of the lungs. Try to curl up higher too. So you're trying to keep those shoulder blades off the floor, but not gripping up into your neck. Just do one more on each side. And then when both legs are together, hold them together. This is where we did the prep for this one. So both legs lengthen forward, your arms extend back, and then you come back to your center. Open up on the inhale, come back into the little ball on the exhale. Always squeezing the inner thighs together. Your shoulders are always shrugging down out of the ears. Inhaling as you open, exhale back to center. Toes and our thighs to work hard. You have one more. And then when you're back to center, we're going to hold it because now we're going to go into scissor kicks. One leg goes to the ceiling, one leg falls down, and then you switch. Try not to grip into your neck. Think longer legs, always reaching out of the hips. Pulling the belly in a little deeper. You have one more on each side. Now both legs are going to be at the ceiling. Rest on head and shoulders for this one. Your arms are strong, pressing down into the floor, and now you're going to lower and lift the legs. Now, same rule that we were doing before. Try not to move the pelvis from your start position. So for this one, I tend to do this one in imprint. But if you want more of the challenge in the muscles in the low back, find your neutral when your legs are straight to the ceiling. It is hard to get into neutral when your legs are straight at the ceiling if you don't have the flexibility in the back of the legs or the low back. Squeeze the inner thighs together. Keep moving at the hips. This one is so hard today, gluing the inner thighs together, longer, straighter legs. We'll do 2 more lower and lifts. Don't change the position of the pelvis as the legs go down and up. We'll do our last one. When you bring those legs back to the ceiling, bend them to tabletop. Bring your fingers laced together so we can go into our crisscross. Twisting towards the bent leg and then switch. Remember, shoulder blades are always slid down, away from the ears. Fully extend that leg out to straight too, so you're reaching out of the hip. Pull the belly in a little deeper. Do one more twist on each side, and then bring it back to center so you can rest. Lengthen the legs down to straight. Reach your arms way back overhead and just stretch. Lifting the rib cage, stretching through your abdomen. And when you're ready, we're going to roll to our side so we can do our side leg series. So you can just lay all the way down on the lower arm if you want, but like we do every other time, you can prop yourself up onto your elbow. You're going to grab onto that ring or ball and press it into the floor. The legs are long and straight. They could be slightly forward to help with the balance or back in straight line. So as you're lifting and lowering the top leg, you're trying not to drop your waistline. So stay lifted in the waistline, pointing as you lift, flexing as you lower. Keep pressing the floor away too with that lower arm. Shoulders are shrugging down out of the ears. Still hollowing out the abdomen. Do 2 more, pointing as you lift, flexing as you lower. And then you're going to hold the leg at hip height and just draw little circles. Keep pressing into the ring or a ball, whatever prop you have. Remember, you could always just keep that top hand on your hip if you didn't want to use a prop, or you can keep it on the floor to help with balance. Think longer leg reaching out of the hip. Then you're going to flex the foot and go in the opposite direction. Don't let that lower leg get lazy. Keep it tight and strong. Now hold the legs together with pointed feet. We're going to bring the ring or ball between your ankles, but if you don't want to use the prop, you could just keep the legs together. Now our upper body is going to go all the way down to the floor, and we're just going to lift the legs. You can keep this top hand on the mat for balance support, or challenge your balance and bring the hand over the top leg. Squeezing that ball or ring a little tighter. Still breathing. Good. Squeeze as tight as you can and hold the legs lifted. Still breathing. Pulling the belly in, shoulders shrug down, and then you can finally relax. And we're going to go over to the other side and bring your ring with you if you used it. Prop yourself up onto your elbow, your legs slightly forward to help with the balance, or draw them back. But you're going to lift and lower the top leg. Point as you lift, flex as you lower. Keep lifting that waistline too, so you don't sink your waistline to the floor and flex your spine. Trying to stay long and straight. And this one, you can really only lift that top leg as high as you can without changing the position of your spine. Sometimes if we lift too high, the waistline drops, and we don't want that to happen. Keep pressing into the ring. Every time the legs meet together, they squeeze together. Now you're going to hold the leg at hip height, reach through the toes, and just draw a little circle. Remember, your lower leg is still a working leg. Don't let it get lazy. Still breathing. Shoulders are still shrugging down out of the ears. Now flex the foot and go in the opposite direction. With that feeling of reaching out of the heel. Longer legs getting pulled out of the hip. Tighten your abs a little more. And then hold the legs together. So go all the way down to the floor, and you're going to put the ring or ball between the ankles. Your hips are going to be stacked, and you want your legs down so you're on a straight line down the center of your mat. Remember not to grip into your neck. Shoulders slid down, and then both legs lift and lower. If you don't need that hand on the mat in front of you for balance support, bring it up over the top leg. Squeezing that ball or ring a little tighter. Still breathing. Let's do 2 more lifts. And then you're going to lift and hold it and squeeze tighter. Still breathing. And then when you're ready, you can rest. So once you get rid of that ring or ball, we're going to lay onto your belly. When you're on your abdomen, tuck your elbows close to your side, and your legs are long and straight with the tops of feet flat on the mat. So let the legs just be lazy, and you're going to use your back to lift the rib cage. So you can keep your hands rested on the ground, but just don't use the arms to lift you up. You're just trying to use your back, lifting the rib cage, pulling the belly in, and then resting back down. So lifting a little, only using your back, and then rest. We'll do 2 more. Still hollow out the abdomen. 1 more lift. And resting back down. Now lengthen your arms to straight. So we're going to do the same lift, but we're going to lift the arms and the legs off the floor. So really reach those arms and legs long, lifting everything up, and then resting back down. Remember, your abs are tight and pulled in, lifting and lowering. We'll do 2 more lifts. And then lift and hold it. So stay lifted, and then start swimming the arms and legs. You're reaching for longer arms while your shoulders are still slid down. So you got that feeling of pulling your armpits to your hips. Narrow the waistline too. So you're laying on the tightest, strongest abdomen you can make. Reach backwards for longer legs. And then when you're ready, hold everything still. Lift everything a little higher, and then rest back down. Bring your hands underneath your head, and you're just going to rest your head down onto your palms or the tops of your hands. Just say you're going to bend your knees, squeeze the heels together, and lift both knees, and then drop the knees. Lift and lower. Tell the inner thighs to work hard too as you press the heels together, always pulling up on the pelvic floor. Now lift and just hold it. So with those knees lifted as high as you can, really press the heels together, pull up on the pelvic floor, pull the belly in, and then you can finally rest. So now you're going to lengthen those legs back to straight again, and your legs are about as wide as your mat. Elbows tucked by your side, and you're going to lift the rib cage up, come all the way up into your extension where your shoulders slide down, and then lower right back down to the floor. Hollow out the abdomen, lifting the rib cage, and then coming up and resting down. Go and make sure not to lock the elbows and to always keep the shoulders slid down out of the ears. We'll do 1 more lift up. And then when you rest back down, pick up your hips and sit back to your heels, go into a little child's pose stretch, rounding your spine, C curving towards the ceiling. You're going to come back to all fours here. So with your wrists right underneath your shoulders and knees are underneath your hips, I want you to make this perfect box out of your body here so that your neck is right in line with your spine. Your spine is parallel with the floor underneath you, and you're going to hold. Really draw the navel in as hard as you can and keep pushing the floor away so your shoulder blades are not winging together. So you're lifting that sternum away from the floor. Curl the toes under and then lift the knees. The knee lift is optional. You can just keep the knees down if you don't want to lift them. But if you can, do those leg kicks. So you're swinging one leg up, lower down, swinging the other leg up. So really pay attention to that lower leg that stays close to the floor. The knee does not get any higher as the opposite leg is swinging. Every time that leg comes up, you're also squeezing the glutes. You're keeping your pelvis squared off facing the floor. You're still feeling those shoulder blades spread apart away from your spine and keeping your neck neutral. This is a lot to think about. Still pull the belly in. Hopefully you're breathing. Exhaling when you kick. You can just do one more kick on each side. And then when you're ready, sit back to your heels again into that child's pose stretch and lengthen the arms. Now let's come to seated, but you're going to turn and face towards the long edge of your mat because we're going to go into a mermaid stretch, then side bends. So with this mermaid Z-sit pattern, if this bothers the hips, you could sit with both legs straight out in front of you. When you're ready, you're going to stretch away from the feet. And then come all the way up and stretch over the feet. Fall over, deep breath. Good. Now we're going to add that twist. So fall over and hold. Now twist and look at the floor. Remember this because we'll do this when we're in a side plank in a little bit. Twist back to face front and then come back up. We'll do that twist one more time. So fall over. Think wringing the air out of the lungs. Twist back to face front and then coming back up. So stay facing the same direction. So we won't go to mermaid to the other side just yet. You're going to slide your feet down your mat. Make sure that your ankles are next to each other across, but this top leg is in front. And this, when you come up onto your lower arm, you could do this on your elbow. You don't have to be on the wrist. When we're going to go up into that full side bend stretch, lift up and stretch. And then lower right back down to your hip. Do it again. Deep breath. Building the rib cage and lower. Now the next two is going to be a little bit harder because we get up into it. Then you're going to add that rotation like we did with mermaid, face front, and then come out of it. So lift up and you stretch, then twist, reaching under your waistline, twist back to face front, and then lower back down. We'll do it one more time if you can. Lifting up, and then twist, twisting back, and then you get a rest. Let's swing to the other side. We'll do our mermaid on this side, so stay low. When you're ready, you're gonna fall over and stretch away from the feet, and then come up and stretch over the feet. Deep breath, feeling the rib cage. Now we got two with the rotation. Try to wring the air out of the lungs, twisting as far as you can. Twisting back, always keeping your shoulders slid down out of the ears. We'll do one more here in the mermaid with the twist. Twisting back and then up. Now when you're ready, let's go into that full side bend. So lengthen the legs, your feet are close to the bottom edge of the mat, top leg is in front. And when you're ready, lift up onto that wrist or your elbow and stretch. And then lowering back down. Lifting up, deep breath. And last two, we add the rotation. So going into that side bend stretch, twisting, looking under the waistline, twist back to face front, and then you can rest down. We'll do one more. All over, so lift up and stretch over, twisting, twisting back, and then you get a rest. Good, face it, so sit so that you're facing towards the short edge of your mat, and your hands are gonna come down and behind your hips. So your hands are on the floor, glue the legs together, and we're gonna lift the hips up into a plank. Remember, you don't have to lift the hips. You could just keep them on the floor, but we're going to add the leg lift to this if you can. Lift, kicking the leg to the ceiling and rest. Remember, your arms are strong, pressing the floor away. Leg pull, pulling that leg as high as you can to the ceiling. Try to keep your neck in neutral too, so that we're not dropping chin to your chest or looking towards the ceiling a little. One more lift on each leg. And then when you get your hips back to the floor, fold forward over the legs for the stretch. If you have that ball, grab onto your ball, and we're going to squeeze it between your knees for a half rollbacks. So this when your feet are flat, your knees are bent, squeeze that ball as tight as possible and your arms are reaching. Tuck your tailbone and fall back halfway into the C curve, pull forward and grow tall. Tell those inner thighs to work hard too, squeezing that ball as tight as possible. Shoulders still shrugged down out of the ears. Pull the belly in a little deeper. Now we're going to add the rotation to it. Don't move the legs, but fall and rotate to one side. Come back up and we'll fall and rotate to the other side. Squeezing that ball a little tighter. Pulling the belly in, twist a little further. We'll do one more twist on each side. And then when you come back to center, you're going to hold it. Still squeezing the ball, still keeping your feet flat. Bring your hands together behind your head. Tuck your tailbone and fall back halfway. Now you just stay here and hang out, but if you can, add the rotation to it. Exhale as you twist. Shoulders are still shrugging down out of the ears. Squeeze the ball tighter. Do one more on each side. And then when you come back to center, come all the way up, and you can take a little breather. You're going to scoot closer so you have more room behind you for rolling like a ball. Keeping the ball between your knees is optional. I'm going to keep it there. Hands move to your shins, feet off the floor, C-curve your spine, not grip into your neck. So keep those shoulders slid down. You're going to roll to the shoulder blades and then come right back up. Inhale as you roll back, exhale up. Now, if you don't need the hands on your shins to hold yourself into a ball, you could just reach your arms out in front of you. Keep everything tight and strong so you keep that same ball shape as you're rolling back and forth. We'll just do two more. Draw the navel in deeper, squeeze the ball a little tighter. Last one, when you're up, you can stay up, but then we're going to go right into teaser. So move your hands to the back of your thighs. And if you do have that ball, you can keep it. You can get rid of it if you don't want to do it. But we're going to try to lengthen those legs up to straight. Shoulders slid down. Your abs are tight and pulled in. Squeeze the ball a little tighter. If you can, let go of the legs. And then if your arms are reaching, challenge your balance of bringing those arms up next to your ears. Squeeze that ball a little tighter. And then when you're ready, you can finally rest back down. So lengthen your legs, get rid of the ball. We don't need it on this one. We're just going to do spine stretch forward. Your legs are straight, about as wide as the mat. Arms are reaching. Lift your rib cage so you're growing tall and straight and pull the belly in. Now the upper spine is going to flex forward, and then you stack your spine right back up, growing tall. Exhale forward. Inhale, growing tall. Don't let the legs get lazy. Keep them tight and strong. Narrowing the waistline. Pull up on the pelvic floor. We'll do one more spine stretch forward. And then you can come right back up and then relax. So I want to do a little bit more extension. I want you to grab onto that ball. I'm pretty sure Steve had a ball, right? Because I know Chrissy had it. Good. So we're going to put this ball behind your low ribs, and we're going to fall backwards. And then we could get our nice stretch extension backwards and hang out there the whole time if you want. But if you want to make it more of an ab exercise, keep your hands behind your head and your elbows wide, and you're going to flex your upper spine. So you curl up and look towards the legs. When you do this curl up, don't jam chin to your chest. Think reaching your rib cage towards the ceiling as you lift, and then falling back. Lifting that rib cage towards the ceiling and falling back. And obviously keeping those hands behind the head are good for neck support, but they also make your abs work a little harder with that extra weight overhead. So you don't have to do this. You could just hang out in that extension and enjoy it. I'm just going to do one more, and then I'm going to fall back and try to enjoy that extension where you fall back and hang back there. If this feels weird on your low back, you could always move higher and get more thoracic extension so your ball gets a little closer between the shoulder blades. When you've had enough of that, you're going to have to use your abs to bring yourself back up. And then we're going to get rid of that ball and just lengthen your legs to straight again. So sit up as tall as you can and pull the belly in. The legs don't have to be together. You just don't want them really wide. And we're just going to do one leg, little lifts. Feel that hip flexor working hard. Feel those quads working hard too. Even flexing the feet makes your quads work harder. Also stretches out the back of the leg a little more. Try not to sink back into this reclining, so grow taller and straighter. You're going to switch legs, same thing on the other side. Keep pulling your rib cage forward and higher to the ceiling. Now we're going to do the same leg lifts back on the other leg, but rotate. So feet are in a V shape, rotate it externally at your hips, grow tall, and single leg lift again. Try so hard not to recline back. Pull the belly in deeper. We'll do the same thing on the other leg. Still focus on that deep breath up high in the rib cage. Forcing every ounce of air out of the lungs. Now you can relax the legs. Hopefully you didn't cramp up in your hips at all. But bend your knees, soles of the feet are together. And this will release the hips as you lean into this butterfly stretch. Let the knees just fall to the floor. And when you come back up, you're going to draw the knees together, roll back onto your back because we're going into teaser. We're going to start off with a modified teaser first. So with the knees staying bent, draw the legs together and give yourself a greater distance between hips and your heels. So you don't want the hips too close in, you won't get up very easily. Arms are straight up to the ceiling, shoulders are slid down out of the ears. As your head, shoulders start to come up, your right leg will start to extend. So we end up in this modified V sit here. And then when you go back down, we'll do the same thing on the left side. When you're down, both feet are pressing down, your inner thighs are squeezing together. You're always pulling up on the pelvic floor and pulling the belly in. Try not to grip into your neck. Make it a simultaneous extension and a lift of your spine. So extension of the leg and a lift of your spine, not an extension in your spine. We'll do one more on each leg. Still breathing. You have one more, lifting up and then resting back down. Now you're going to keep those legs together, but draw them to tabletop position. As your spine comes up, both legs extend to straight, and you're going to hold into that V-sit, still breathing, and then rolling back down. Really pay attention to that low back as you roll down, so you got to tilt the pelvis and get the low back down first. Hollow out the abdomen. Remember, arms are always long and straight, lifting up, still breathe. And then you can finally rest back down. Now you can keep going with that modified version. We're just going to do 3 more, but try to do 3 more of the harder version where your legs are down onto the floor and you lift from here. So remember, head comes up first and then everything lifts up. Hold up into that V, take a deep breath, and then slowly roll down. Get that low back down, and then everything rests. Take a deep breath in, head comes up. Holding those legs up, still breathing, shoulders slid down out of the ears, and then rolling back to the floor, really squeezing the glutes and resting. We got one more lift up. Exhale on the way up. Hold at the top for your deep breath. And then when you're ready, you can finally rest back down and just give yourself a breather here. Reach those arms way back overhead. Lift the rib cage too, so you're stretching through the abdomen. And then go ahead and rest your hands down by your side. Your knees are bent again. And we're going to do single leg bridging. So you could use the ball between the knees on this one if you want to. It helps keep it'll definitely challenge your inner thighs, but it helps keep your thighs parallel if you have a hard time keeping your thighs parallel with each other. So hands are by your side. When you're ready, peel your spine up and lift the hips. What typically happens is that lifted leg kicks higher to the ceiling, but you want to keep those thighs parallel with each other, and then roll the spine back down. Take a deep breath. Exhale, lifting up. So if you have that ball between your knees, squeeze it tighter, and then slowly rolling back down. We'll do one more, lifting up, and then resting back down to the floor. Switching legs, the opposite leg is long and straight. Take a deep breath and lifting the hips. Hold at the top for a deep breath, and then slowly rolling back down. That lower foot that's on the floor, make sure it's pressing flat into the mat. Squeeze your glutes too, and rolling down, always pulling up on the pelvic floor. We got one more, keep the thighs parallel. Hold the hips up high, take a deep breath, and then rolling back down into your rest. Go ahead and rest your feet for a moment. Make sure you have enough room on your mat behind you that you're not going to kick anything, because we're going into rollover and then hopefully our jackknife. So hands are by your side, legs are straight to the ceiling. If you want, you can just do the little prep where you pick your hips up and drop them back down and just stick with this the whole time and take breaks if you need it. You could help yourself into that rollover by bringing the ball underneath your hips and legs all the way overhead, and then rolling your spine right back down onto the ball. You don't need the ball, obviously, legs all the way overhead so that your legs are parallel with the floor underneath you, and then slowly rolling back down to the floor. Now, when you are ready to work harder, we'll do the jackknife, where we bring those legs all the way overhead. Point your toes and lift high onto your shoulder blades. So you're trying to make that pencil out of your body, and then roll down from there without your head and shoulders coming off the mat. Really squeezing the legs together and then resting. Take a deep breath in, go into the rollover first. And then when you're ready, jackknife up. Toes of the ceiling, really lengthening, and then rolling down from there. Once your hips are on the floor, flex the feet, and we're going to go into corkscrew. So it's the same little prep lift that I gave you for rollover, just a little hip lift, and then draw that big circle, roll into the back of the pelvis, and you're back to start. Pick the hips up and draw that circle around the opposite direction, squeezing the legs together, picking up the hips, down and around, pressing the shoulders into the floor, narrowing the waistline. Always tell the inner thighs to work hard. Roll into that low back. We'll do one more in each direction. Last circle. And then you can bring the legs right back to center. Bend your knees. We're just going to do a little spine twist here. So before we did more of the hip stretch, we went ankle over knee, but this time bring knee over knee. And you're going to drop the legs to one side. So if it's the right leg on top, drop the legs to the left. And then you're going to twist your neck too, so you look away from the legs. When you come back to center, we'll do the same thing on the other side. So cross the legs, drop them to the side, and then twist. Still breathing. When you bring the legs back to center, uncross the legs. So I want you to bring your legs straight to the ceiling, point your feet, press the arms to the floor. You're going to open the legs about mat width apart, then cross your ankles. Open the legs, cross in the opposite direction. Open, crisscrossing the legs. So this little crisscross motion is what we're going to end up doing in boomerang. And boomerang is really confusing because it combines the rollover, this crisscross motion with the legs and our teaser. So if you notice when you're crisscrossing, try to make your abs work harder and get the legs to a little bit lower angle. Again, not changing the position of the low back. So we're trying to maintain the placement of that lumbar spine as the legs get lower. Press the shoulders to the floor. Now hold the legs together. You could bend them in and then rock yourself up to seated. So when you're sitting, there's that fun boomerang exercise. I haven't done this in a while. Hopefully I remember it. You're going to cross right ankle over left. So you start with your ankles crossed, and we always come back to this. But when we come back to this position, it's going to be left leg over right, and then we just keep on going with that cycle. So we're going to sit tall, pull the belly in, tuck your tailbone, roll down, come all the way into that rollover. When you get into that rollover, you cross the legs in the opposite direction. Hold that cross. So it's just one open cross. Hold it. Slowly roll your spine down, then bring yourself up into your teaser and hold yourself here in the teaser while your ankles are still crossed. You're going to circle those arms all the way back behind you. If your shoulders will allow it, clasp those fingers together and reach them back behind you. Now you're going to tip forward so your feet fall to the mat and you come into this forward fold while your shoulders are getting a stretch. Then you can release the hands and arms follow through and touch to your feet. Now stack up to straight. We got the opposite leg on top now, and we're going to keep going through this cycle 3 more times. So we did 2 full sets. So when you're ready, roll down. Feel free to take breaks if you need to. Legs overhead, cross in the opposite direction. Roll your spine to the floor. Bring yourself up into your teaser. Circle those arms back behind you. Lengthen, fold forward, and then finish with a stretch to your feet. Stack up tall. All right, let's do it one more time. Feel free just to do rollovers or teasers if you hate this one. Cross the legs in the opposite direction. Roll your spine down. Bring yourself up into that teaser. Circle those arms back. Clasp those hands together. And then you fold forward and stretch. This is the last one. I really think 1 full set would have been enough. Legs overhead, cross. Rolling down to lift into that teaser. Stay lifted in that teaser as those arms go behind you. It's so hard to keep those legs up. And then tip forward and stretch. Good job. Let's just sit tall. Make sure your hips are centered. Your ankles are more in line with your hips. And we're going to go into tree. So sitting tall, grab onto the back of the thigh, kick the leg up and bend, kick the leg up and bend. Kick the leg, hold it. Walk your hands up the leg, pull yourself in, shoulders are down. Keep the leg lifted so both legs are strong and roll back just halfway. Now you can keep holding onto the leg, but if you can, let go, still breathe. Bring your hands back to the leg, pull yourself into that hamstring stretch again. Flex foot preferably so it gives you a deeper stretch, and then you can relax. So do the same thing on the other side. Sitting tall, kick the leg, bend, kick, bend, kick and hold it. Walk your hands up that leg, pull yourself in, walk your hands down, fall back halfway, hold. If you can, let go, still breathing. Bring your hands back to the leg, walk to the top again, flex the foot, feel the stretch, and then you can finally relax. But keep this leg bent because you're gonna drop it to the floor, sit tall, and then twist towards the bent leg. Now keep this rotation, but fold into the straight leg. Good, come back up. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So opposite leg is bent, sit tall, and twist. Twisting as far as you can. Now fold into the straight leg. Just stretching. Come back up to seated. Now both legs are going to be straight out in front of you. We'll do a couple hamstring stretches. So reach both arms up and fold into both legs. And pull yourself in. Hopefully a little deeper on each exhale. Try not to grip into your neck. You can come right back up to seated. Just sit however you're comfortable because we're going to do some shoulder shrugs. Shoulders up to your ears and down. Up on the inhale, down on the exhale. Now keep shoulders down and back and just do a couple neck rolls in one direction. And then you can do neck rolls in the opposite direction. And then after that, you guys are all done.